Hey, welcome to my channel. So today I want to talk about my favorite fixed blade knife. And this knife is a Gerber A400. Now, if you're not familiar with the early Gerber knives, this one I got as a gift back in around 1980. It does not have the original sheath. This is a sheath that I made for it. But Gerber made some just extraordinary knives back then that really just really unique construction methods, super high quality materials. And this knife, not only because of the kind of knife it is, but also the history behind it, it's my favorite fixed blade knife. So I'm going to put it on the workbench behind me here. We'll take a look at it. You'll be able to see it up close. We'll talk about it a little bit, and so you can hear not only why it's my favorite knife, but because of the way it performs, but also my favorite knife because of its history. Anyway, let's take a look at it on the workbench. So this is the knife, a Gerber A400. Now, as I mentioned, this sheath is not original. We'll talk about that in a second. Gerber back in the early 80s made some extraordinary knives, and this knife was one of them. There's nothing really super fancy about this knife. I mean, you know, it's a drop point, you know, hunting knife. Its blade's about 3 and a little less than 3/4 inches. And if you look at the back of it, you notice the spine's not really that heavy. The spine is probably only about 1/10 of an inch. It just, you know, a really classic drop point hunting knife. Got a lanyard hole in the grip. But here's some of the unique things about what Gerber was producing. At that time, Gerber was making just some extraordinary knives, and there was a lot of debate still going on at that time about whether stainless steel or carbon steel was the better choice. And carbon steel really had a lot of, you know, a lot of adherence to carbon steel. People didn't want to switch to stainless steel. They didn't feel like it was easy to sharpen. They didn't feel like it held a good edge. And there were some good, you know, high stainless steels that were out at that point. 440C was out, and it's a good steel. But still, there was just a lot of debate about, you know, stainless steel versus carbon. Kind of like when semi-automatic pistols became popular. You know, there was a lot of debate about, you know, whether a revolver or a semi-auto was a better, you know, better handgun to own. And, you know, just sportsmen and outdoors people tend to have these kind of debates. But there's some unique things about this knife that if you didn't know, you'd probably be surprised to understand what it is. Now, number one, this is not a stainless steel knife. This knife is actually made from high carbon tool steel. It's actually high-speed steel, the same kind of steel that's used to make saw blades, like for metal hacksaws, you know, like for all kinds of machine tools. It's high-speed steel is a tool steel that can, you know, like drill bits are often made of it. They can actually get very hot while they're, you know, working and still not lose their temper. It's just a super high-grade carbon steel, tool steel. Now, the thing that's kind of unique about this, though, is that Gerber wanted to find a way to keep the blades from rusting. So this high-speed steel blade is coated with industrial hard chrome, except for the actual cutting edge. So this knife is a tool steel blade, high-speed tool steel, covered with industrial hard chrome plating. Now that's set into an aluminum handle that is actually cast over the tang of the knife. So it's kind of like the way they do with polymer handles now. They'll use a tang that probably has some notches in it, but instead of casting polymer onto the blade, Gerber actually found a way to cast aluminum onto it. Then they coated that aluminum with this textured coating called armor hide. And I understand it's a thermoplastic coating, maybe not too dissimilar from powder coating or something, but it's got a textured surface to it, and it's really tough. Now, I have managed to wear some of it off and chip some off over the years because I've used this knife a lot. Now, Gerber made these, and they were not inexpensive in their day. These knives were just really highly thought of. I mean, the Rockwell hardness on these blades was, I think, either 61 or 62 on the Rockwell C scale, so the super hard steel. And yet, you know, this blade's not very thick, but it's pretty stiff. It's just the tempering of the the heat treating and tempering of the blade just really good. So the Gerber A400 back in 1980, I think sold for around $30 to $40, say $35. And in US dollars today in 2022, that would be like paying $125 for a knife. And that's, a lot of money. So back in around that time, 1980, my wife worked for a Tandy leather store at a mall near our home. We were newlyweds, got married in 78 rather, and we had just been married a short time. We were, like a lot of young couples, we were struggling to get our careers started and make some money. And I was working on business machines, and she was working at a Tandy leather store in the mall. And Tandy Leather also owned a chain of stores called Buckle and Knife. And it was at that store that she also worked there. She got some hours there also, that she got this knife. And what had happened, the original sheath is kind of like a pouch sheath. And the customer that bought this had put the knife in the sheath and had managed to cut through the sheath. Really wasn't, to be honest, that great a design of sheath as I recall. But the sheath was damaged. He returned the knife. And because of that, my wife was able to get it, not only an employee discount, but because the sheath was damaged, she was able to get it even cheaper. To be honest, we can't remember exactly what she paid for it, and probably the owner of the store even let her, take some payments out of, a little bit out of each paycheck for a little while, because, we didn't have two nickels to rub together back then. There's no way that, we could have afforded a knife that today would cost $125. That's just, we would have never afforded that. But she managed to do that because, she wanted to get me something really nice. And this knife has been with me through outings, out-of-door outings and hunting trips and camping trips. I was a Boy Scout leader for about 15 years, and so this went on a lot of Boy Scout camping trips. It was on one of those Boy Scout camping trips that I made this sheath. Originally, I repaired the sheath that it came with, managed to glue the cut back together, and that stayed for quite a while, but eventually it kind of fell apart. So I made this sheath. I actually made this while I was on a camping trip with the Boy Scouts. I wanted something that would retain the knife and just fits over a regular belt loop, but it holds the knife pretty well. Just treated with neat's foot oil. You can put a lanyard down here if you want, and so it's been a good little sheath for it. But anyway, that's kind of the story of this knife. My wife got it for me when there's no way I could have afforded it on my own, probably. And now today, after having used it more than any other knife for a lot of years, it is just my favorite. It just really, it's nice in the hand, it fits well, the texture on the grip on the handle is just great. It holds an amazing edge. It's just a great knife. And it's really a unique design that Pete Gerber came up with. When everyone was arguing about stainless versus carbon steel, he took high-speed tool steel, carbon steel, industrial hard chrome plated it, and made a blade that would not only resist rust and do so very well, but have all the performance of really great carbon steel. So there you have it, the Gerber A400, and my personal favorite knife of all that I own. Well, thanks for letting me share the story of this knife with you. Like I say, it is probably my favorite fixed blade knife, not only because it's a great knife, performs really wonderfully, but because, like I say, of the history behind it, how I got it, the person that gave it to me, obviously my wife, and just a lot of personal history with this knife. So it's just been a great performing knife. It's looking a little long in the tooth now, kind of worn, but still, if I were to go out hunting or camping today, this is probably still top on my list as which knife, for which knife I want to grab. Anyway, thanks for letting me share this with you. If you have any thoughts or comments, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. And as always, I always appreciate you watching my videos, and thanks for watching.